Hello, everybody. So, as a little send-off here at Sinfully Sexy, Mackie asked me to do a little bit of reading from Chasing Sunrise. Don't be alarmed. So, to set this one up a little bit, Jack and Seven were childhood playmates, but tragedy had separated them for 22 years. Now, 22 years later, Seven is king, right? Yay! But Jack is a prisoner in his dungeon. We're not talking about a happy dungeon we come to expect in romance novels. We are talking like people get tortured and shit dies dungeon. So this is exciting. So now they get their first look at each other after, they were teeny tiny little people. And here we go. Hope you enjoy. Jack shuddered against the cold bite of his shackles. The iron cuffs held him upright, and his arms were stretched tight over his head. Gravity pulled him sloping forward painfully against his bonds. His umber hair swayed in sweat-slicked strands and clung to his face. The humidity hung like a milky fog, visible against the gray stones. He could smell the herbal traces of algae glazing the walls. No moans, no cries for release. Not even a rattled chain sounded throughout the dungeon. He deduced he was the only prisoner, or the only one currently living. It had happened so fast. He was on the shoreline of the lake when two figures shot from the water. Shrouded in black, the demonic men yanked him into the lake. He had expected his end, but he didn't expect the dungeon. Not just any, but Darkmoor's dungeon. He knew it well as any ghost story. He had teased Seven mercilessly for crossing his fingers and turning in a circle 3 times as he walked by the entrance. Jack's heart softened. Seven. Sweet Seven. It had been exciting for Jack when he was a cub to have a special friend outside of Priagust. One who was not a shifter at all, but something different. He was Jack's treasure, and he would guard their memory. But the men had taken him and tossed him in this dank cell. It had to be a mistake. Darkmoor was Priagust's sworn protector. King Louis would never wrongfully imprison a shifter. Jack spit a speck of grit. Was Louis alive? Did he survive the storm? What of Anna Maria? Surely she'd know. But Jack wasn't sure, and he had been just a child when he saw Louis die, and all childhood memories were fallible. He could only hope this was a misunderstanding. He squinted with a painful pull in his shoulders, and the realization sank in. This was far more than a mere misunderstanding. Jack's pupils flexed into pinpricks as the sound of distant footsteps announced someone's approach. He jerked his chin toward the sound to get a better look at his host. An ethereal, earthbound spirit drifted in the dungeon, pale as winter mother snow, and with a brilliant bloom of golden curls to rival father-son's rays. The woman captivated him. Dressed in layers of midnight sky and coal, her skirt swirled in a trail of goldfish fins behind her. The unusual ladybird settled at the cell door, tossing a lock of spun gold over her shoulder. She waited. "What do they call you?" she coldly demanded. The peculiar tenor in her voice made Jack choke on his breath. A man! The strange, colorful bird was a man! By the way he glared at Jack as if he were of no consequence, Jack decided, whatever the case, he had to be on guard. Jack sniffed and mentally discerned the more masculine scent under the perfumed oils. But there were 2 masculine scents. This beautiful man's, and someone else's. He licked at the sole of his lip and smirked. He had nothing left to lose. Jack lifted his head and panted against the searing pain in his back. He focused on the curious little meadowlark shrouded in flimsy frippery. He had never seen such unusual hue of hair before, but he knew one thing for certain. "You're not the king," Jack said. Something came over the strange man as he quirked his thin brow in irritation. "Yes, I am the king," he growled in warning. "Your name, creature?" Jack evaded the question and changed the subject. "The king of Darkmoor would never show a shifter such hostility," he spat. "Go, little meadowlark. Fetch him now. You are of no concern." The supposed king recoiled on his booted heel as if he had been burned. "Excuse me, you maggot!" he growled as his temper flared. Jack squinted at him. He looked so much like Anna Maria as Jack had remembered her. Perhaps her son? Perhaps Seven? Jack swallowed. He had to keep it to himself. He had to find out what he was dealing with first, if he survived that long. Jack thought of his brother Caltag back in Priagust, probably wondering where he was, and if Jack was still staring over the lake, waiting for the day Seven would appear. Jack's heart thumped. Louis is gone, and I am king now. You will answer to me. My sources tell me you're a spy from the shifter land of Priegas, he said. The accusation did not bode well for Jack. Jack took a stand against his captor. He strained against his shackles and grinned through the searing pain in his shoulder blades. Your sources are clearly mistaken. I was only fishing when your men emerged from the lake and tried to drown me. Which, he glanced around, his shackles rattled. This is some level of hell, correct? Jack watched him, still puzzling his way through his recollections. It wasn't possible he was 7. Why would 7 become this? He hissed a laugh and kept up a brave face. Jack turned his gaze up. He smirked when the king leaned away from the hammered iron bars of Jack's cell in disgusted horror. You are a very fussy bird. You are no more than a chick peeping for nourishment. You will answer my questions, Shifter, or you will be forced to answer them. What kind of king do you think you are? Jack asked. Do you understand the scope of what you're doing by holding me like a criminal? Pardon me for not rolling out the red carpet in the most lovely courtesans, he said sarcastically. A little bird that pecks. I like that, Jack chuckled. Crossing his willowy arms in irritation, the king nodded to the stocky dungeon guard. The guard loped forward on his gnarled legs and slipped the heavy key into the iron padlock. With a protesting shrill, the bolt popped free from its moorings with a loud, echoing clank. The cell door swung open with an antiquated creak. The colorful bird of a man slipped into the cell. Jack's heart thumped, and his face heated. It was 7. His 7. He had never been so sure. In the 22 years between then and now, the boy Jack had so longed for no longer existed. Confusion swirled through him, but Jack had to keep it within. More parts of the puzzle would fall into place if he just gave it time. His heart wouldn't stop racing, and while he maintained his arrogant grin, I'd curtsy, but as you can see, I'm a little tied up. Jack apologized. This new 7 cocked his hip in irritation and snorted. For a vicious animal, you don't look like much. The term hit Jack hard, but he wouldn't cower. Funny, Jack chuckled. For a king, you present yourself quite a bit like a whore. Before he could blink, 7 was upon him. He yanked Jack by the scruff of his hair, tilting his neck painfully backward on stalk to meet him eye to eye. Jack's eyes rolled wildly to focus on the glacier blue of 7. His scent stabbed into Jack's nose, jabbing cruelly into his brain. The delicate floral became an unrelenting assault on his mind and body. The damning confirmation sank into Jack's stomach. It was a matter of survival not to show his fascination or fear. Listen to me, you worthless shit-eating maggot! 7 snarled in his face. You do not get to call me a whore. Do you understand? I will leave you here to rot in this dank cell until the rats find you too foul and putrescent. You will be thankful we don't outright kill you. You will be appreciative of your accommodations. 7 relaxed his grip, and his harsh tone eased. You will be eager to answer our questions. You will make yourself very helpful, or I will have you skinned alive and your flesh made into jerky. 7 snorted his breath through his nose, and Jack's hair fluttered. The beautiful blond man smiled like a content feline. Now, do we have an understanding? Channeling the bravest parts of himself and locking away his heartbreak, Jack laughed with a crooked, toothy grin. If this was a game, he would play it until he's the last one standing. Finally, he sorted through the second male scent through his thoughts and sparked with devious delight. Did I ruffle your feathers, Meadowlark? Does this man who sent your slathered in get to ruffle more than your feathers? 7 shoved him away with a wail of disgust. Jack's head bounced against his chest, and his manacles creaked with added pressure. 7's offended squeal was the only warning as a hard, echoing slap cracked across Jack's cheek so forcefully his vision blew out to whiteness for a moment. With several flustered breaths, 7 sharply pivoted and stormed out of the cell. He nodded the stocky guard. Have him question about the nature of his people and his land. I don't care how you do it, or to what end. Use any means necessary to milk him dry. The guard bobbed his head and bowed. Turning back, 7 regarded Jack one final time. Jack noticed the confusion mingled with a semblance of fascination. He forced a smile through his blood-tinged teeth. See soon, your majesty, he purred. Jack clung to a scrap of hope and listened to 7's whispers as his skirts as he vanished in the darkness. The rats chittered. And that concludes my little reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I did okay. So thank you for everyone at Sinfully Sexy having me. It was a great time. And thanks to Mackie for asking me along. Bye.